Former President Donald Trump aired some familiar grievances during his keynote address at the Conservative Political Action Conference. His targets: President Biden, the Justice Department. Heard that before. The former president, who's already declared his candidacy in 2024, also took the opportunity to galvanize his supporters, saying it is time, quote, to finish what we started.
We will beat the Democrats. We will rout the fake news media. We will expose and appropriately deal with the rhinos. We will evict Joe Biden from the White House.
All right, it seems obviously he was speaking to a receptive audience as he easily swept the closely watched CPAC straw poll. Trump took 62% of the vote compared to his closest competitor, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who only won 20%. CBS News political director Fin Gómez is following all of this from Washington. So, Fin, how significant is it for Trump to have come away the big winner of the straw poll? I mean,
is it? Because we don't know. Is CPAC what it used to be?
That's what that. Yeah, exactly. That's the question, right? I mean, you got a lot of people who are Trump supporters that are attending CPAC, but it seems as if the governor, Ron DeSantis, didn't even bother to turn up. He did his own rally or he did his own thing because he felt like that's not the place to be anymore.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, it really became this this Trump show, if you will. There were so many people who didn't show up of this 2024 potential field and other rivals. I mean, it really was through the hallways. I was there for a couple of days covering this annual gathering of conservatives. But it was just, you saw Steve Bannon in the hallways. You saw, there was Stephen Miller there. There was all this very, very pro-Trump group. But, specifically for like this straw poll, the Trump advisors that I spoke to say that they're trying to utilize this win to demonstrate that they have strength and momentum in this early part of the cycle, and to show that he has this wide space between himself and his closest potential rival, Governor Ron DeSantis from Florida, who came in second in that straw poll, and other declared candidates like Nikki Haley and Mike Pompeo, who also addressed the CPAC gathering this year, and they're saying that he's still portraying himself as the standard bearer of the party. But Republican critics from other 2024 camps, Vlad and Anne Marie, say that it's because of the reason you brought up, because it has become so much more of this Trump MAGA show than in previous years when it was more of a cattle call for multiple candidates. It's not very a scientific poll. It's based on like a snapshot of the attendees. And in previous years, in the last several years, these straw polls have gone for Trump, obviously when he was in office. But before that, it was really, a wide array of different people and people who never really became the nominee or into the White House. And people like Rand Paul, Rudy Giuliani won it back in 2005. So, but yeah, it was for Trump. It was the highlight of what his advisors think was a very strong week at CPAC.
So yeah, I didn't see his entire speech. I've just seen the highlights. But
it was a long speech.
Okay, well that's usually how it goes with him too. But it occurred to me that his critics within the party, and some of them who are already said that they want to run for president. One of the things that they keep saying is it's time for a change, time for a fresh new message. And he sort of fed right into that, because you could have sort of gone back in time and heard a similar series of points from him. Is this an indication of what his 2024 campaign is going to look like? Have we heard him speak like this, at other events?
Yeah, Anne Marie, and I think that's a great point, because it in a lot of ways, this new Trump iteration is trying to capture that 2016 version of Trump, if you will, and you're hearing a lot of those similar points. And he's also, trying to demonstrate that there's at the same time he's trying to demonstrate that there's perhaps this like new Trump, if you will, with a more arguably disciplined Trump, because for the most part, even though it was a very long speech, he actually had a teleprompter and read a lot of it, and it was these prepared remarks, which is something he doesn't typically does. But he did veer off course a few times, of course, like as he does. But like the message, the content, this sort of retribution, this is trying to capture this criticism towards the Biden administration, but it's also this sense like post J6, like this new sort of focus that you do see within the base and a lot of the attendees at CPAC, Anne-Marie.
Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, as you know, Finn, made some interesting remarks during his appearance at CPAC. Let me play some of what he said.
Every recent administration, Republican and Democrat alike, added trillions in dollars to our debt. That is deeply unconservative. Trump administration, the administration I served, added $8 trillion in new debt. This is indecent and can't continue. Earning back that trust will be hard work. It won't just be a campaign speech. It won't just be talking about it. We need demonstrated seriousness, people who will explain to the American people and to their kids and grandkids why this matters.
So I guess there's some kudos due, some people are saying, to Mike Pompeo for actually naming the former president when he talks about the criticisms that he has over the past administration, because you've got people like Nikki Haley who are talking and beating around the bush when they actually mean the former president without ever saying his name. So what did this mean? What did this indicate to you about Pompeo's strategy? And more importantly, Finn, how did the room react?
You know, actually, that was one of the most interesting speeches because it really, as you said, Vlad, he directed. There was no question who he meant by these comments. He was criticizing his former boss. Of course, Pompeo was the former Secretary of State, but also the former CIA director. And you know, he was Trump's guy. He served for the entire term. And so, like, if you look at that, and now he's trying to find the space to criticize him, it's clearly a strategy, but it's one that could get to him some noise and some attention because, as you mentioned, the others are holding back on the criticism towards Trump, and especially because part of that is that, you know, it's the base, right? You know, Trump still has that 28% of that base that's hardcore Trump, and you know, and for whatever reason, you know, if things change, the dynamic changes. It's still early; they will still need that. So in a way, there's this duality between supporting the Trump era policies and at the same time trying to push and find space away from yourself from the former president. Pompeo is doing something different. He's seemingly starting to really pinpoint his criticism towards his former boss, and you could be seeing more of that as we proceed forward down the cycle, Vlad.
All right, Finn. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.